So hi, welcome guys. I'm doing a talk on DEF CON today. So basics, yep, so just going over the basics of what DEF CON is, my experience of it, and then how you can get involved going into it or getting involved in some of the villages, and so on. So, what? Oh, you good? Cool. Alrighty, so brief who am I? I'm a fourth year CSEC major. I was last year's ISTS competition architect, and over at Blue Team Village for DEF CON for the past 2 years, I've been the reverse engineering malware station lead, and I'm also a cat lady and I crochet a ton. Moving on. So what's DEF CON? DEF CON is a 3-ish, 4-ish, day-ish convention out in Nevada, Las Vegas, that is colloquially called Hacker Summer Camp, but it's this massive hacker convention. Our club goes over to ShmooCon every year in January or so. Multiply that by a factor of like 10, and that's kind of what DEF CON is. It's a collection of a variety of villages. I think this past year there was like 30 or so villages there, of varying topics covering the wide berth that cybersecurity covers. There's also main talks, so talks that DEF CON directly filters through and determines which are the best. There's talks that villages do that they filter per their topic. And then there's also contests and, vendor booths and whatnot. So every year at DEF CON, there's a badge, and there's always a badge challenge. This year was a music-based challenge, which was pretty cute. So there's a lot of shenanigans you could have done with the badge. I just chose to play some dumb music through the badge and then solve the music challenge, that first step. But going on to my experience at DEF CON, first, the general convention itself. There's a lot of talks. There's hundreds and hundreds of talks per day that you can go to. But to note is that the majority of them are recorded, with the exception of Sky Talks. Sky Talks are a very specialized set of talks that aren't recorded, aren't streamed. You have to have your phone off, away, kind of a thing. They're talks mainly on some controversial topics, some things that presenters don't want to be recorded or don't want to necessarily be associated with. So those were some really cool talks that I went to. Also at DEF CON, there's a ton of walking. I think like on my walking app, like it recorded I stepped like 20,000 steps per day, something like that. That was crazy. Also to note, I've also lived in the East Coast my entire life. I'm used to like maybe 80, maybe 90 degree weather in the summer. Vegas is like usually 100, 110 degrees outside. Now typically it's like a dry heat that they'll tell you. This year's DEF CON, for whatever reason, it was super humid, it rained, it flooded. You'll probably see, I don't know, there's like a video floating out on Twitter of a guy like in a pool noodle just like floating down the Vegas Strip because it flooded that badly. And also at DEF CON, there's like a billion stickers that you can grab. So grab all those stickers while you can, because it's pretty fun. Moving on to what I did at Blue Team Village specifically. I volunteered there as the reverse engineering malware station lead. So I had 2 pre-recorded workshops presented, one on PowerShell deobfuscation, one on portable executable file analysis and covenant identification, and then one very, very last-minute live panel at the end of the village closing, talking about my experiences being a station lead and also being super new to the industry. And then what happened was I lost my phone, which if you're, have that conception of DEF CON of, ooh, spooky hacker place, and you lose your phone, you're like, oh no, oh God, I'm gonna die, or at the very least, never get my phone again. But I did. DEF CON is super great with all of that. I was at the lock-picking village, and I think what happened was like I turned my back to grab a new lock for a second, and in that second, someone was like, oh, lost phone, and immediately lobbed it over to Lost and Found. So I got it back within like 5 minutes or so, but as always, goons, which are the DEF CON volunteer staff, took a picture, took a few fun pictures of them with my phone. Another thing to note about Vegas is there's a lot of food there, and it's very easy to overspend on food there. So as a tip, if you ever do go to Vegas, very much calculate like a per day how much you want to spend, or you're going to be like me, and you're going to be really, really sad when you check your bank statement at the end of the month and be like, oh God, that kind of happened. But I will say, if you ever do go, try one of those like massive hotel buffets at least once, because it's pretty nuts what they have there. And then a last thing is that DEF CON primarily takes place on the Las Vegas Strip. And the Strip is an absolute haven for essentially drinking and gambling, usually those two together. But, if you're like me, I'm not super big on gambling. I don't really have that money to just throw at a table and lose immediately. I didn't enjoy the Strip that much. So on my last day, DEF CON ends on Sunday. My flight wasn't until Monday at like 11 p.m. So I had the entirety of Monday to explore Las Vegas beyond the Strip. And I would say if you have the opportunity to do so, if you're at DEF CON, definitely do so. There's a lot of really cool things in Las Vegas that you can check out. I went to Omega Mar at Area 15. That was a really neat artist installation. There's also Red Rock Canyon, which is like 30 minutes north of Vegas. And it's this like beautiful landscape that if you're really into just nature or just walking around or hikes, it's a really neat place. So some notes for the future, if you are interested in going to DEF CON, is definitely prepare for the amount of walking you have to do. Definitely get a hotel closer to the convention center. Mine was at Bali's, which was about like a 10-minute walk, screw you, Sean, which was about a 10-minute walk from the actual convention center, which meant that like if I forgot anything or if I just needed a break, I was setting myself for a mandatory 10-minute hike through Vegas. Another thing is that, again, prepare for walking, get the right shoes. Also be aware that like sometimes things will go wrong. So you may have this like really nice planned out schedule, like, okay, I'm gonna hit the vendor booths, then I'm gonna go to this talk, and then I'm gonna go to this talk over here, and then I'm gonna go to that talk over there, and then you can't get into your talks. I had one day where I had like 5 talks I wanted to go to, and I couldn't get into a single one. So learning to be pretty flexible and learning that maybe, on a given day, prioritize 2 or 3 talks. And you'll do yourself a lot more better because then you have that flexibility to maybe explore a village or maybe, check out the contest area or maybe just chat with people and build those kind of connections. And so here's how to get involved. So primarily, if you just want to go to DEF CON, I'll warn that the main barrier is really much financial. After hotel and airfare, I was out like a little under $1,000, and I was splitting my hotel room with someone else. So if you can, try to get someone else to pay for this. It's harder as a student co-op, but full-time, there's a lot of places that will pay for you to go to DEF CON. Tickets are about like $380 off the top of my head. You can pre-register online, with your credit card and whatever. It's a lot more faster because you can go on the shorter pre-registration line to pick up your badge, but there's less anonymity. And if you're concerned about anonymity, then LineCon with cash is the best. So LineCon is essentially kind of a joke. DEF CON has a ton of lines, and the badge line is no exception. I think I heard the morning, like it was a 2-3 hour line or something stupid like that. So prepare for that. So while going and getting your badge in person has that anonymity, it takes forever. You can also get your badges free from a number of sources. Like I mentioned, your employer will pay for it. If you volunteer for a village or a village staff, like I am, your village will give you one for free. And there's a few circumstances where DEF CON will give you one for free, like if you're a speaker or if you're a goon. Those are multiple sources of getting that free ticket. So some things to do there. Generally, like I mentioned, there is workshops. I would recommend definitely registering early and online, and there is a nominal fee of like $25 to make sure people don't leave, but they're generally pretty decent workshops. There's the main talks, so multiple tracks covering a wide variety of topics within security. These are these like big DEF CON talks that all the people want to go to, so definitely get there early if you want to get to one. And then there's contests. There is like tons and tons of CTFs. There's also like social engineering contests. There's like a build the best tinfoil hat contest, which I've heard is pretty fun. So definitely check those out early. Those are really cool experiences to go to. And then finally, villages. So there's like 30 villages to check out around the convention. There's things like Blue Team Village, Red Team Village, Cloud Village, Physical Security Village, Lockpicking Village. Really, anything you can think of in the realm of security, there's probably a village or a village covering it. And then finally, don't be stupid. DEF CON has a certain culture. And coming in as a newbie, you may be like, oh God, it's all these lead hackers. I need to get a burner phone. I need to get a burner laptop. I need to get a burner everything, cash only. And generally speaking, you don't really need that. Just have some common sense. Keep everything up to date. Obviously don't shout your name out in public. Don't shout any, personal information out in public. Basic OPSEC stuff like that. Use Signal. That's, pretty decent to use. There's also some cultural rules at DEF CON, like don't take photos of people without their permission, generally a no-no. Things like that. Be nice to people, follow the rules, you won't have a tough time. And then finally, villages. So if you're interested in getting involved on the village side, I can speak a lot to that because that's how I got involved. But literally, just pick a topic that interests you and go in. A lot of villages will accept volunteers, and the easiest way to get in is to volunteer during DEF CON. So this will be stuff like setting up, room monitoring and people management, taking down the things and stuff like that, which probably doesn't sound super attractive to you, but it's a great way to get to know the organizers of the village, especially if you don't have an in already. And as staff. So I got into Blue Team Village because I knew one of the founders of Blue Team Village, and he invited me directly into starting to create content for the village. It is a year-round obligation. It's a village-by-village basis as to how much of the year you're actually spending. My village, Blue Team Village, does year-round content development, but some others only do it in the months leading up to DEF CON. And then finally, I'll say give it a try. If you have the money, if you have the resources available to, it's a really awesome experience. It's a really hot and strenuous experience. I will say, like, there's no shame in taking naps in the middle of the day, because I definitely did that. But you'll meet a lot of really amazing people. You'll have a fantastic time, and you'll learn a lot. And generally speaking, the kind of post-con mood that people are in is a very invigorated, wanting to learn more about security. So if anything else, it's extremely valuable for that alone. And so, any questions? I would say, having gone to both SHMU and DEF CON, definitely go to SHMU first. I mean, as a first-year student, you'd probably go to SHMU first anyway. But getting the idea of what conventions are like is kind of important, because there's a certain experience you get at conventions, especially talking with so many people, being around so many cybersecurity people, that SHMUCon is that kind of step in to that. And I think especially as a woman in security too, SHMUCon is the ease in to kind of realize that it's a very male-dominated industry. And SHMUCon may be a hard shock, but DEF CON's a harder shock on that one. So I will say that that is a kind of barrier to entry, is kind of that understanding that that is what reality is right now. You. Yeah. So what I did bad. I booked my flight pretty late. So I'd say definitely book early. Look for deals too. I think the price I paid was around like 50, not 50, 500, $500 for the round trip flight. Obviously, some days are going to be more expensive than others, and if you book, maybe like 3-4 months out from the convention, you're going to get those higher costs. So book early on that one. And then as for stay, there's a variety of choices. There's some really good Airbnbs around. DEF CON has their whole DEF CON block for hotel reservations of certain hotels around the convention area and in the Strip. So those are offered at a discounted rate, which is pretty good. I think the hotel price came out to like $600 or $700, and then that was split in half for me because I was staying with someone else. So definitely, if you can, I would say if you're looking to, budget really well, look at sharing a hotel room or sharing, an Airbnb with a group of people, because that'll really cut your costs down. Cool. Anything else? If not, then thank y'all for listening.